Picture this. You're one of the most famous warriors in Europe. People literally sing songs about you. You've got a crusader army, a reputation, and a mission that seemingly writes itself. Take back Jerusalem. That's the whole point. And then you spend years fighting, winning battles, taking cities, and somehow you end up going home without the one city everyone came for. Not because you lost every fight. Not because you weren't brave. But because the situation was a medieval logic puzzle from hell, and the kings leading it could barely share the same map without starting an argument. Today on Royal Idiots, we're talking about the Third Crusade, Richard the Lionheart versus Saladin. One of the most famous showdowns in crusading history, full of epic clashes, grand speeches, and the kind of strategic decisions that make you want to grab the steering wheel and say, no, the objective is right there. Welcome to Royal Idiots, the podcast where we explore the most powerful bad decisions in history. I'm your host, Melissa, and today we're looking at the Third Crusade, starring England's Richard I, France's Philip II, and their formidable opponent, Saladin. And just so we're clear up front, this episode isn't about cartoon villains and flawless heroes. It's about politics, religion, logistics, ego, and what happens when you try to run a massive international war expedition with medieval supply chains and leaders who can't stop competing with each other. To understand the Third Crusade, we need to zoom out and look at the world of the late 1100s. The Eastern Mediterranean is a patchwork of power. On the Christian side, you've got the crusader states, territories carved out by earlier crusades, hanging on in a tough neighborhood. They're not one united kingdom. They're a fragile set of holdings with rival nobles, complicated succession disputes, and a constant need for reinforcements from Europe. On the Muslim side, power is consolidating. And that's where Saladin comes in. Saladin isn't just a battlefield commander. He's a political unifier. He pulls together Egypt and Syria under his leadership and presents something the crusader states have always feared: coordination. And then there's the spiritual and symbolic center of it all, Jerusalem. For Christians in Europe, Jerusalem is more than a city. It's the city. That symbolism drives fundraising, recruitment, propaganda, everything. If Jerusalem falls, it's not treated like losing a fortress. It's treated like losing a piece of the story of the world. Now, add one more ingredient: personalities. The Third Crusade is a clash of leaders with giant ambitions. Richard I of England is young, spectacularly confident, and built for war. Philip II of France is politically sharp, cautious, and very aware that whatever Richard does abroad could change the balance of power back home. And Saladin is disciplined, patient, and playing a longer game than win the next battle. So what sets this whole thing on fire? The fall of Jerusalem. In 1187, Saladin defeats the Crusader forces at the Battle of Hattin. This is the kind of loss that doesn't just hurt, it breaks the spine of the Crusader kingdom. Soon after, Saladin captures Jerusalem. News hits Europe like a thunderclap. Churches, courts, and marketplaces buzz with the same call: a new crusade. Not a modest expedition. A big one. A king-level crusade. And that's exactly what Europe tries to assemble. Three major rulers are associated with the response: the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, the King of France Philip II, and the King of England Richard I. There's a twist, though. Frederick, who could have brought sheer mass and legitimacy to the whole campaign, dies on the journey. That loss matters. It reduces the Crusade's weight and leaves the remaining leaders with less manpower and, arguably, less pressure to cooperate. Which brings us to our two Western stars, Richard and Philip. Richard becomes King of England in 1189. He has this legendary image: the warrior king, the crusader king, the guy you want if your plan involves charging into danger with a sword and winning. But here's the other side of Richard. He's also expensive, impulsive, and not exactly interested in sharing the spotlight. Philip II of France, on the other hand, is not trying to be the hero in a poem. He's trying to win strategically, both in the Holy Land and in Europe. And he's very aware that going on crusade with Richard sounds a lot like leaving your rival unattended while he builds fame and influence. So yes, two kings go on crusade together, and almost immediately start acting like two co-workers forced into the same group project. And of course, There's the third key figure, Saladin. Saladin knows what he's defending. He's also managing alliances, internal cohesion, and the reality that wars aren't won just by brute force but by keeping your coalition together longer than the other side can keep theirs. Let's talk about how the crusade gets moving, because rise to power in this case is really rise to the shoreline, and it turns out that is its own saga. The Third Crusade is a logistical monster. You're moving thousands of soldiers, horses, weapons, food, money, and supplies across land and sea. You can't just walk into the Levant and expect the local environment to feed you. Armies this size don't live off the land so much as they strip it bare, and if you strip it bare too early or in the wrong place, you starve. Richard's journey is infamous for how much time he spends not actually crusading. He gets tangled in politics and opportunistic moves along the way, including the seizure of Cyprus. Now, to be fair, Cyprus becomes useful as a supply base. But it also becomes an early sign of a bigger theme. Richard is extremely good at taking things that are in front of him. The question is whether those things are the thing he came for. Eventually, the Crusader forces converge on a major target, Acre. Acre is a port city, and in Crusader math a port is life. You need a steady flow of supplies and reinforcements from Europe, which means you need secure coastal strongholds. Acre is under siege for a long time, and by the time Richard arrives, the whole situation is grinding, brutal, and politically tense. This is where the crusade starts to feel like a contest of egos as much as armies. Different factions in the Crusader camp are arguing over who should rule which territories, who deserves credit, who gets to sit where, who has the right claim to leadership. Richard shows up and immediately makes an impact. He's energetic, hands-on, and decisive. Philip is there too, and the tension between them is not subtle. Acre eventually falls to the Crusaders in 1191. On paper, this is a huge victory. A vital port secured, a major symbol of Crusader momentum restored. But victories have consequences when you don't handle what comes after. Negotiations over prisoners and terms of surrender go badly. And Richard makes one of the decisions that shocks even people who are used to medieval brutality. He orders the execution of a large group of prisoners. Supporters frame it as ruthless necessity, an attempt to prevent threats, to force Saladin's hand, to stop the Crusader army from being burdened with captives. Critics then and now point out the diplomatic cost. It hardens attitudes. It poisons negotiation. It signals that future surrenders might not be safe. And it becomes part of Richard's legend in a way that is not flattering. Meanwhile, Philip II decides he's had enough. He returns to France. This is one of those moments where everyone involved has a justification, and yet the outcome is still disastrous for the Crusade's unity. Philip leaves behind some forces, but the headline is unavoidable. One of the Crusader kings goes home while the crusade is still underway. And Richard is now the undisputed star of the show, for better and worse. From Acre, Richard moves down the coast. The strategy is sensible on its face. Secure the coastal route, keep supply lines open, establish a chain of strongholds, and then, eventually, turn inland toward Jerusalem. Saladin shadows Richard's movements, looking for opportunities, refusing to be baited into the wrong kind of fight. Saladin doesn't need a Hollywood battle if he can drag the Crusaders into exhaustion, hunger, and heat. But there is a big fight. At Arsuf in 1191, Richard's army clashes with Saladin's forces, and Richard wins. Arsuf becomes one of Richard's signature victories. It's clean enough to be celebrated and loud enough to echo back to Europe. If you're a Crusader supporter, this is the moment you say, "See? This is why Richard is the guy." And yet, here's the uncomfortable truth about crusading. Winning battles is not the same thing as achieving the mission. Because the mission is Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is inland. And inland is where the Crusaders become vulnerable. Supply lines stretch. Water becomes a weapon. Terrain becomes a trap. And Saladin, unlike the Crusader coalition, is fighting closer to his base of power with a population and structure that can support sustained defense. So we reach the strategic dilemma, the heart of this story. Jerusalem is within reach. That's not poetry. It's real. Richard moves toward it more than once. The Crusader army gets close enough that the goal feels tangible. And then, it doesn't happen. This is where people often reduce the story to a simple punchline. Richard conquered everything except the actual objective. But why? Because taking Jerusalem is not the same as holding Jerusalem. Even if Richard storms the city, he has to keep it. That means garrisoning it, supplying it, defending it from counterattack. And doing all of that while his coalition is fraying and while he's aware that his political enemies back in Europe are not taking a vacation. Remember, Richard is not just a crusader leader. He is a king with a kingdom that can be attacked, negotiated over, and undermined while he's away. Saladin's strategy makes this worse. If he can avoid a catastrophic defeat and simply keep the crusaders stretched and anxious, time starts to become his ally. Disease, cost, morale, and winter weather become part of the battlefield. Then there are the internal arguments. Crusader leadership is not unified on what to do next. Some want a direct push for Jerusalem. Others want to secure more territory or take Egypt as a way to force leverage against Jerusalem, because controlling Egypt changes the strategic balance. Richard has moments of clarity, and moments that feel like hesitation, and moments that look like he's being pulled by competing priorities. And at the end of it, the Crusaders do not take Jerusalem. Instead, Richard negotiates. This brings us to one of the most fascinating parts of the Third Crusade: diplomacy between two enemies who respect each other. Richard and Saladin fight hard, but they also communicate. They exchange messages. They test terms. They probe for advantage without ignoring reality. By 1192, the crusade is running out of steam. Richard needs to leave. Saladin wants stability and legitimacy, and he doesn't want to gamble everything on one more massive showdown if he can secure the outcome he wants. So they strike a deal, a treaty that allows the Crusaders to keep a strip of coastal territory and allows Christian pilgrims access to Jerusalem under Muslim control. If you're looking for a clean winner, this is where history gets tricky. Richard wins battles and secures key coastal holdings. That's real. Saladin keeps Jerusalem. That's the central prize. So if the Crusade's core objective was the recapture of Jerusalem, then the Third Crusade, despite all the heroics, fails at its main mission. Unsurprisingly, this decision, choosing treaty over the final push, has consequences. For the Crusader states, holding the coast is valuable. It keeps them alive a while longer. Ports mean trade, reinforcement, and strategic footholds. But it also locks in a reality. Jerusalem remains under Muslim rule. The emotional and religious energy that launched the crusade doesn't get the satisfying ending people wanted. For Richard personally, the consequences are immediate and dramatic. Leaving the Holy Land doesn't mean going home safely. On his return journey, Richard is captured and held for ransom. That's right, the famous Lionheart, the Crusader hero, gets taken off the board like a chess piece and sold back to his side for an enormous price. And while Richard is stuck in captivity, politics in Europe keep spinning. Rivals make moves. Alliances shift. Philip II is not sitting around admiring Richard's medals. He's doing what kings do, expanding his advantage. For Saladin, the consequences are mixed too. Defending against a crusade is costly. It strains resources and requires constant management of allies and subordinates. But the symbolic victory of holding Jerusalem strengthens his reputation enormously. And underneath all of this, the broader consequence is that the crusading movement doesn't end. Not even close. The Third Crusade becomes fuel for future expeditions, future promises, and future disasters. Now let's talk legacy. The Third Crusade becomes one of those historical events that people remember more for its characters than for its outcome. Richard the Lionheart becomes a legend, the heroic warrior king, brave, charismatic, and unstoppable in battle. But if you look closely, his legacy is also full of contradictions. He's brilliant tactically. He's capable of intense focus. But he is also pulled by ego, by rivalry, and by an almost magnetic attraction to the next immediate victory. Saladin's legacy is equally powerful. In many traditions he becomes the model of the noble, restrained, and effective ruler. Firm but not gratuitously cruel, strategic rather than reactive. That image can be idealized, of course, But the reason it sticks is that he consistently shows discipline and long-term thinking in a war where both sides had plenty of reasons to lose control. And then there's the myth versus reality layer. The myth is a clean duel between two great men. The reality is a sprawling conflict shaped by weather, shipping, supply lines, money, feuding nobles, divided command structures, and the basic problem that Jerusalem is easier to dream about than to hold. In a way, the lasting mark of the Third Crusade is that it shows how medieval warfare wasn't just about courage. It was about management. And sometimes, the side that manages better doesn't need to win every battle to win the war's main objective. It's time for our signature segment, the Royal Idiot Verdict. So how should we judge the key Royal Idiots angle here? Because the Third Crusade isn't one ruler's single isolated blunder. It's a pile-up of royal decision-making, some smart, some self-sabotaging. Let's start with Richard. On the royal idiot scale, I'm giving Richard the Lionheart, questionable judgment. Not because he's incompetent. He's not. He's a gifted commander, and his victories at places like Arsuf are real achievements. But here's the problem. The Crusade's central objective is Jerusalem, and Richard's campaign keeps drifting into a pattern of winning what's in front of him rather than achieving what's at the heart of the mission. Add in the political infighting, the brutal decisions that burn diplomatic options, and the inability to keep the coalition unified, and you get a crusade that looks glorious and still falls short. Now Philip II. Philip gets competent but flawed. Philip leaving doesn't automatically make him a fool. He has political reasons. But abandoning direct partnership in the middle of a massive expedition weakens the entire enterprise. It turns a difficult project into an even more unstable one. And Saladin. Saladin gets strategic genius. He holds the key objective, plays the long game, and understands that the enemy's supply lines and unity are just as important as swords and spears. So yes, if you came for Richard versus Saladin, you get it. But the bigger story is, sometimes the real opponent is logistics, time, and your own allies' egos. Next time on Royal Idiots, we'll explore the fall of the Angevin Empire. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the podcast and share it with a fellow history fan. And if you're still thinking about the Third Crusade, here's a final question to take with you. If you were Richard, would you have marched on Jerusalem anyway, knowing you might not be able to hold it? Or would you have done the unglamorous thing, take the treaty, bank the coastline, and accept an ending that doesn't fit the legend?